Mhm. Can you hear me all right?
I can, yeah.
Great.
You betcha. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Awesome. How are you?
Pretty good. How was chapter two? Did it turn out all right?
It did. Yeah, I think there's some most any of the suggestions I'm going to make here, bear with me, I'll just open this up, are largely cosmetic because I think you got the gist. There's one point, oh, sorry, hang on, just got two files open. There's one point in the story where I'm going to invite you to stretch it out just a little bit longer, give us a little more time, but that's not unusual. You had the bones, so to speak. You had the bones of the story all here. So let me just open this up.
Hmm.
That 50, at least 50 or 60% of this is if you want to go this direction, but I certainly would recommend this. But let me just pull it up. There we go. Do you work tonight?
No, I worked yesterday.
Oh, sweet. So it's not too much tonight. Awesome. Okay, let's get right into it. Love the scene. Generally speaking, I've always felt it really works. I love that you decided to go in the direction of
Rapey.
basically sexual assault, which is great. Yeah, very rapey. And oh yeah, like I'm just dying for this guy to get ripped apart. I'm going to make a suggestion of something she can say at the end that might give the audience more of a yeah, but you can take or leave that too. First suggestion right off the bat.
Well, I mean, how many people actually want to see, um, like their bullies or their what's the word that's not victim? The the opposite of
Like a
victim.
perpetrator, like a
Yeah.
perp.
How many people actually want to see their perpetrators ripped apart by animals and eaten alive?
Oh, probably everybody. Yeah,
Fair point. Fair point.
yeah. um, well, I don't know about eaten alive. That's a good point. Like it's so savage. So when I think
Like
of movies
honestly,
like
I think she's taking more like mental damage from this than any kind of catharsis she might
yeah,
possibly receive.
I would suggest if it was if okay, so here's what I'm going to make a suggestion of.
Especially
Any
considering that,
scene,
like, all things considered, technically speaking, nothing happened because I didn't really want to go into those details, like, at all.
totally. So the way a Sam Raimi, or where it was like Evil Dead territory would do a scene like this doesn't mean you have to. What they would do is they would really intensify her feeling completely trapped in this before the now this is before the monsters arrive. So let me just share this idea. I think of movies like The Descent, Evil Dead, or actual scenes where women are being sexually assaulted. But especially since you have it in a horror context, you've got two things here that make it really potentially terrifying. So I would invite you to take full advantage. I think right now you're taking advantage of about 60 to 70% of the potential terror in this
Hmm.
scene. And I want to help you juice it up to like 100 if we can.
Okay.
Um, so because there's the two terrifying things, especially if you're a female reader. Now, I think a male reader is going to read a scene like this qualitatively differently than a woman would.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
certain things they're going to have in common, but there's certain things that are going to be very, for some women, triggering when they read this, and that's not the reason you shouldn't write it. I think simply being conscious of what those triggers may be. So
Yeah.
I used to counsel, when I was a pastor and then a professional counselor. I dealt with a lot of victims of sexual assault and walked them through situations like this. So you're in really good territory. How a Sam Raimi would do a scene like this, I'm thinking. I'm not Sam Raimi, so who knows? But what he would be tempted to do, is an ending where this woman is basically like what you did with, is it Richard in your opening chapter, like the scientist or the sorry, not the
What's his name? I don't care.
whatever his name is. Yeah, you know who I'm talking about. The guy who watched everybody get ripped apart and then slowly went insane, felt his sanity
Hmm.
drifting away. I love the idea that no, of course, I'm not going to suggest that you actually show a rape, but I'm going to suggest that first off,
Yeah, I don't think I could write that.
no, and I don't think you need to or that you should. The way Sam Raimi, I think, would do this is he would do it where by the time we see her running away, she is you could do one of two things here. Obviously you can do it where she's simply running scared, which is okay but kind of boring and it's been done a million times, or you can do it where she's running away. And the very last thing that I'm gonna suggest you do is as she ran away she grinned. Now, because what Sam Raimi would do, he would have her like Evil Dead, the remake of the Evil Dead, by the time, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, just as good as an example. She has been through hell. Like, to me, first of all, this chapter should probably be about twice as long, and
Hmm.
but not just for the sake of length. By the time she's running away for her life, um, I want her to be in a state. I mean, if I'm as a reader, if it was me, I would want to see her having been through absolute hell. Right now, it's happening so fast. There's not really any time to go through hell. It's like, oh my God, he's trying to rape me. Oh my God, monsters. Ah! And it's over. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. Let's slow this bus down. First of all, I'm going to suggest you devote at least half a page to they're in the graveyard and we have no reason to be afraid of Mattia, and neither does she yet. Otherwise, why the fuck is she here right now? What the way it is we're not even a third the way through the page, and she's already get off of me, and I'm like, I don't even know these people yet. So my suggestion would be, even though I know some writers would say, "Who cares? I'm going to kill them off." That's not a stop it. Make us believe you're not going to kill them off. Make us
Exactly.
believe
There's no point in killing off random people if they're just random people.
there's no emotional investment,
Yeah.
and I don't care.
You're just seeing a
So
body explode, and video games have that already.
plus, you don't want every chapter to be just a sort of a different version of the same, blood orgy. Or that just gets cool, but it's boring eventually. So my suggestion would be number one is
I'm
this.
regretting how much of a blood orgy the first part of this book is.
I'm not. I know, and you know that I thought you should tone it down initially. I don't mind it. Here's what I think you're going to end up doing. It's good that you're publishing this. Of course, the upswing of publishing each chapter as you write it is you get the instant gratification of saying, "Hey, I got something up." The downside is, of course, when you're, as is almost always the case, a writer often doesn't really know yet what his or her real story is until they finish the first draft. So you'll have already put that out there.
I do that though. Like I wrote a script.
Yeah, but with this story specifically, with the way that you're developing this story, my suggestion will be eventually you're gonna pull all the pieces back together. I would suggest you turn it into an actual full-blown novel, but we'll talk about that later. This scene, let's stay focused on this scene. My suggestion is you give us half a page to a page, especially since you're double spacing. So with these pages, I would suggest you get at least a full page. A couple walks into a graveyard. Why? My suggestion would be she thinks, I mean, she's flirty. This is the vibe I'm getting. She's flirty. She likes him. She's a little horny. But she's mostly just into the thrill of being in a graveyard. We don't get any of that yet. Like, to me, if they walk into a graveyard, forget about sex first off. They're in a fucking graveyard. That's cool. Give us a moment to just sort of enjoy the fact. And like, let's think about any woman, if you were to ask her, so let me ask you a question. If your boyfriend took you to a graveyard, how would you respond? The answer to that question should be your whole first page, which is the response of, Jesus, this is kind of creepy. Why are we here? And rather than I'm not fucking you in a graveyard, my suggestion is now, if you're going the rape direction, my suggestion would be to cut that line, because it's a little counterintuitive for her to have come here. She doesn't want to fuck here, but she clearly wants to fuck. So why is she complaining when he's taking her clothes off, as if she doesn't want to be sexually moved on? And is it just because it's a graveyard? I don't buy it. So my suggestion would be, she doesn't mind being in a graveyard. She's a little freaked out. Why are we here? We're going to find out that the reason they're here is because there's nobody around and he can have her way with it. That's the way I'm reading it. He's like, why did he take her here? Was it just to scare her? He took her here because he knew that if she called for help, nobody was there to come rescue her. That's the way it feels. That's his motivation. She's, of course, she being like so many women's like, oh, my Matthias would never hurt me. She's completely underestimating this guy's motivation and how far he's willing to go.
I may have to change his name because I kind of like the name Matthias.
Fair enough.
I may want to say that for like a character I'm not going to instantly murder.
Mm-hmm. Like, I loved it. Ramona Martel followed her boyfriend Matthias as he whispered in a harsh whisper. Well, first of all, you don't want to have the word whisper twice, but as he whispered a harsh whisper, and she giggled as she pulled him away. That immediately went, what? My suggestion would be, he's flirting with, he's doing what literally every guy like Matthias would do. He brought her here and he's schmoozing her, and maybe he's trying to romance her. He's not aggressively doing anything yet, or that I can tell from a mile away what's happening. And if they're a little romantic, and he's like, so, like, I would love to hear a little bit about their relationship. Not a ton. He says, oh, this is a weird place to bring us for our anniversary. And he's like, well, it's, our 2-month anniversary. They're not in any kind of but I mean, or this is a weird place for us to go after a movie. Tell us anything. Give us context. They get here. She thinks that they're just here because he wants to scare her. And meanwhile, she likes him. I want to get some sense that she likes him, because the first words out of her mouth are, stop it, you're awful. So I'm like, bitch, why are you here? I don't get it. And then the next thing is like, oh God, you're terrible. Stop trying to fuck me. And we're like, okay, why are you here? I want to believe
Yeah.
that this is a legitimate,
I didn't set this up
credible.
enough. Is basically what you're
That's
saying.
okay. Yeah. This is what we do with scenes like this. You got the bones, you got the basics of where you want to go, and now we need to broaden stuff. So I would give it a full give us a little, if you want a little coaching, and we can do that next session on just what this intro looks like. And then slowly, so oh, stop it. You know what? Like, oh, this is great. I love you. Whatever you want to do. It doesn't have to be super so sappy or anything. It's like she's like, okay, joke's over. Like, we're at a graveyard. Ooh, Michael Jackson. I would even mention, it says, this isn't Thriller, man. Like, it's kind of creepy though. Can we just go home? And he goes, oh, I thought you'd kind of like it. We could cozy up. And she goes, yeah, I'm in the mood, but just not here, man. And oh, don't tell me you're scared and whatever else. Build up, and then he moves over to her and he starts, like, I would suggest, rather than pulling her shirt off, he reaches down and starts undoing her pants, because that, forgive me, but that's a slower thing. Like, any guy starts to lift a girl's shirt and it's a, but if he's like, give us a little bit of smooth talk on his part. This guy's right now, he's got zero game. This guy has no game. Yeah. He's clearly just a rapist, right? And so I'm like, I don't buy that she's here with this guy. But give him a little charm, give him a little something, so that we could believe that this guy could possibly seduce her at all, never mind to a graveyard. And then he starts making moves, and she's like, no, I don't want to do this here. Like, she's not necessarily opposed to, maybe a little first base action, maybe second base. She's not going home in this place, that's for sure. But maybe a little touchy feely, since we're talking about it. And then he just keeps moving, and the things that she would probably say first were things like, rather than you're terrible, but like, not so fast, or Matthias, slow down, like, you gotta romance the stone, and like whatever else like that. And then things start getting ugly. Then we're creating more dramatic tension. And meanwhile, you fooled us into believing that's what this scene is about. But we know that because you put us in a graveyard and you just had that wicked scene, 2 scenes previous, we know that this can't possibly end well, right? Because they're in a graveyard. So we're wondering, ooh, where does this go from here? No comparison will be made to Michael Jackson's Thriller at this point, because he's a perfect gentleman in Thriller. This guy is not a perfect gentleman. And then slowly she begins to realize, she's like, when she says, like, for example, what are you doing? The line, don't worry, the place is empty, that would make no sense to me if I was her, because she's worried precisely because the place is empty. The place being empty would cause her to worry. So don't worry, the place is empty is an oxymoron. It'd be like saying, don't worry, right? So my suggestion would be like, it slowly dawns on her, oh my God, did you bring me here? So that, because now when she's saying stop, he can say, like, relax, no one can hear you anyway. And then she would say, holy shit, like, now it's turning into fear. Like, at that point, when she realizes he's not going to stop and there's nobody there to save her, and then build on that feeling of absolute terror. And then, so to me, then, I love the creepy grin. Ooh, we're watching It. My 16-year-old and I are watching It. We're on It too now. So that was very Pennywise. Loved it. As he, he's like, now that's the moment. This is the moment where I realize that this is not just somebody who's horny. This is somebody who is up to no fucking good. Mm-hmm. He's heard no once, probably twice, maybe even 3 times. And this train is not slowing down, and he's smiling. Now I hate this guy. Mm-hmm. He made me nervous before. Now I fucking want to kill him, right? Especially if this is my daughter. Kill him, rip him in half. I'll be one of the monsters, right? So that's the magic position you put him in. Now, when these monsters appear, if you build towards that moment to where I'm just like, I'm thinking about anything. Now I want monsters to appear, so that when they do, it simultaneously scares and deeply satisfies me. I'm cutting things out. Take or leave some of these cuts, just because it was like, as he leaned down to kiss her, as he kissed her, there would be doubles there. So these are all.
Notice I tend to do that a lot. I repeat myself to make sure I'm getting certain points across.
Fair enough, but I'll tell you what I love about your style, and you've given evidence of this now for weeks in a row. It is you and one other student I have who get it, and that's and I can see it, so that's why I'm not hung up on it. You are determined to get the idea out. You're not stopping to make it look pretty. You'll come back later and make it look pretty. You're getting the main idea out, and and what are you doing? You're maintaining momentum. You're writing at a wicked pace.
Oh yeah.
And no surprise, you and he are ahead of everybody else. So instead, things like this, these are just little cosmetic changes. Instead, she twisted her head to the side, and rather than as she tore a chunk of his lip, because that will now be the third time you've used the word lip, I think, at that point, or second, my suggestion would be as she twisted her head to the side and took a piece of his mouth with her. You know, that's a very Stephen King or Dane Koontz thing to do, where you don't actually describe, because you're so graphic, you are definitely not suffering for lack of graphic descriptions of gore. So you can, every once in a while, it's almost scarier when you don't. So she says she twisted her head to the side and took a piece of his mouth with her. Oh, that's actually more grotesque to me than she tore a chunk of his lip off with her teeth, because that's a literal description of her doing it. I would rather you suggest it to me, and then what I imagine will be much worse. Yeah, my imagination.
Even just saying that, I'm now imagining like the entire bottom lip being ripped off.
Oh yeah, like what does that mean? Like when I read stuff like it's like, oh my god, took a piece of his mouth. How much of his mouth? Ew. And now my imagination is doing the work, and you're doing less of the work.
Actually,
fucking bit. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
that's another thing I've noticed I have a problem with, and that is making my characters make suboptimal moves. Like let's be honest here. How many like actual rape victims actually manage to pull something like this off and like tear chunks out of their rapists with their teeth? Because objectively speaking, that's a brilliant move to make. You get DNA, and like at least I'd say about 2/3 of rapists will probably just fuck off at that point.
Yeah, and the alternative, the two most common victim reactions when they are being able to be physically defensive at all is this or clawing the face, right? Because then you also get DNA under the fingernails, right? It's one or the other. So either one of those would actually work, but I like the fact that she actually bites his mouth. I'm like, oh, sweet. Fucking bitch is great. He screamed. You can say in pain. I think that's one of those things you don't need to say in pain. I think everybody gets that he's in pain. And
he wailed because
sure. And I think you can, cradling. I like the cradling his mouth, not his mouth, because you've used lip and mouth.
His face.
Sure, yeah, as or as blood as blood gushed like a geyser from his face. Like and you can get gorier there and describe like, oh my god, it's like now bleeding incessantly, right? There's now you can talk about incessantly. You can use this twisting. I'm just suggesting a cleanup of the paragraph. Twisting away from him, Romana scrambled to her feet and sprinted into the maze of tombstones, hoping to lose him. Simple. And I'm going to suggest she's looking for an exit in the moment, which you already allude anyway. Rather than her attacker, no, this is not her attacker. This is him. This is this son of a bitch. I'd get personal. Because you've said bitch, I might go with cunt on the second time around. That's up to you.
I'll go for I don't use the word cunt that often because it's more of an English term in the sense that it's not appropriate to say here.
Yeah, you could just say, I mean, at this point, you don't have to have him call her anything. You can have him say, get back here is actually almost more sinister. Get back here. Ooh, that sounds like a father scolding a child, and it's so terrifying. You're going to pay for that. Love that. We're running for a moment. My suggestion here, take her, leave it, her eyes searching frantically for an exit. Ramona, which is I'm borrowing from higher up. Ramona spotted a tall fence, just because in your next thing you say grabbing the bars. At first I was like, bars of what? Oh, he means the fence. I pictured like a low fence. So I might just give a little more description of the fence.
I was thinking like one of those big old enclosed graveyards.
Yeah. Cast iron bar. Get a little more, like any of that kind of thing. Again, I might go with I liked the Ramona Mateus called out creepily, come out wherever you are. This guy has gone from rapist to Jason Voorhees serial killer, and so it's like she didn't see this at all. Like my suggestion would be,
that's the right thing about psychos. They're very good at hiding it.
Fair, but I think I think the challenge is you're trying to sell me on three ideas at once. One is that he's they're in a graveyard and he's a rapist and he's a He's clearly a predator, alpha predator of the extreme thing. And here come monsters. And my suggestion might be
My main thing
focus
here
more
is
on
to just get you to hate him as much as possible before he dies.
fair. Oh, I hate this guy. It's
Yeah.
totally up to you. Whatever you want to do there.
I
Then
Yeah, I was going to mention I ran D&D games, and while a lot of characters really liked beating the bad guys, some characters just annoyed the shit out of my players until they hated them so much that it was more cathartic to kill them than literally anything else we did in the campaign.
love that. No,
So
this is great. And he,
always make your villains as hateable as possible. Your players will love you for it.
so long as the difference here for narrative fiction, so long as they don't turn into such a cackling caricature that they're like, oh, this guy isn't even a real person anymore. He's just like, come out wherever you are, and I'm like, oh, come on. Like that was my first. I'm just giving you my honest first reaction.
Hmm.
It felt like suddenly he's turning into Pennywise, right? Um, and it's he's more frightening if he's more, to me anyway, he's more frightening if he's more like a lot of men actually would be. It's already terrifying that he's doing this at all. But do whatever you want further, for sure. Then
What would
Ramona.
you recommend? Because like I said, the point is to make this realistic, and unfortunately, most of my idea of rapist basically comes down to rather really abusive people from Reddit or horror movie characters. So
Well, you've got this beautiful line here. I can hear you, Ramona. If you come out now, I'll go easy on you. I'm fine. For example, if you go right from get back here. See, what I want to do is I'm wanting to feel her feeling, but every time I want to feel what she's feeling, he comes in and says something. I'm like, no, I want to know, I want to feel her fear. And I think if you were to maybe spend a little more time on her emotional response as she's running for her life, and then I can hear you, Ramona. You come out now, I'll go easy on you. Ramona held her breath as she crept backwards. I love this. Crept backwards. Then she stepped into something squishy. I think there's maybe a better word than that. Held her breath as she crept backwards. She slipped. I would have her slip and fall onto a body.
that was
Rather
my
than
first
stepping.
thought, but I wasn't sure how I'd manage to do that and not have the ghoul immediately wake up.
Fair, fair point. Yeah. So then she
Unless there's
stepped
like a
into
lot of dead bodies.
fair. I love that, and the whole turned around and
Also,
and
for
held her
context
hand.
on ghoul behavior, think rabies. Like a lot of rabies.
Oh,
Cuban with rabies with super strength. Well, like, mild super strength.
totally fair. There might be an ordering thing too. She stepped in something squishy. Have her see the body. The way it reads now is she steps in something squishy, turns and cycles a scream, and then we see the body. I see what you're doing there dramatically. You might want to say she turned to see something squishy, show us the body, and then she goes like this, sees the body, sees the monster. You could do it that way too. It works either way.
So we're not having her slip into gore and all that shit.
I think you're right. It makes sense that you wouldn't have her slip into it. Although if she slipped and almost fell, I just love the idea that she steps not into something squishy. Like squishy is one thing, wet and slippery is something altogether different.
Like, don't get me
Um,
wrong, I get what you're saying. My problem is, what happens. Then again, I guess if the ghoul isn't there, she can fall into it, and then we can. No, that still doesn't work because then the ghouls will go after her because she's covered in blood.
Oh, it's so terrifying. This picture you've created here is, I love it. A woman's body. My suggestion again, rather than a woman's body that had been viciously tore apart, lay on the ground. Suggestion is a woman's body lay on the ground, or what was left of it. Or something a little more suggestive there. And beside it, a sleeping monster. Oh, it should be sleeping. A sleeping monster cuddling it like a child, cuddling her like a child would a stuffed animal. I love that. By the way, the idea. I figured that you were going to have the monster feeding on her, but the idea that the monster is laying there holding this corpse is so terrifying. Oh, it's perfect. I've never gotten chills like that.
Well,
Um,
ghouls are carrion, so usually they break into coffins and use that as like their quote. They use coffins as basically like beds. They dig down and sleep in coffins as well. They eat the remains, and then they bust out and do it all over again.
yeah, nice. I think my suggestion might be, and again, these are only suggestions. I'm just going to do this. My suggestion would be a sentence that, here's a Frankenstein, and beside it a sleeping monster, cuddling her like a child with a stuffed animal. Where are we here? Let me just do this. And I'm not mean to replace it. Just realized I got to fix this. Bear with me. Sorry, Hayden. So let me start from the beginning here and see if I can make sense of this sentence. There we go. And beside it, a sleeping monster cuddling the corpse like a child. There we go. Forgive me. There we go. Like a child with a stuffed animal. Yada yada yada. Where we go? Like a child with a stuffed minute. It's emaciated, hairless. It's emaciated. It's emaciated, hairless body. No, that's not how I wanted to say it. And beside it, a sleeping monster. Emaciated and hairless. It's so grotesque. Oh, it's like something out of a Ken Russell film. Oh, yeah. And beside it, a sleeping monster, emaciated and hairless, cuddling it like a corpse, cuddling the corpse like a child would a stuffed animal, all teeth and yellow claws. Like that's one of those ones where less is more, in my opinion, is go for concision on something like that. I like its teeth were jagged shards of black, but it doesn't pay off. It's to me, it's more potentially more frightening and terrifying to limit how you describe it, because you're describing an emaciated and hairless monster cuddling a corpse like a child, all teeth and yellow claws. To me, that's potentially scarier. And then my suggestion would be, as she's staring at that, then she covers her mouth on trying hard not to scream, making every effort possible not to scream, as if to wake the thing up. And then from the blackness, Matthias suddenly appeared. Rather than more thing, found you, bitch, think you can get away from me, bitch. I'm like, oh, stop talking, dude. I want to see him jump out, and hit her with, I love this, as much force as he could muster, a manic grin on his face. I might use a different word than grin because you had it before. And I would finish this. I would finish the full sentence, I own you. And the reason I would is because of what I'm going to suggest at the end. Take or leave it. Mm-hmm. Matthias, I love this, never finished his sentence. Roused from his sleep, the monster reared like a grizzly and buried its claws into Matthias's torso, tearing his arm from his body with no effort at all. My suggestion would go big. Don't cut his hand. Don't bite his hand in two, whatever that means. Rip his fucking arm off. Like I would go big.
I'm tempted to not do that because, like I said, ghouls aren't apex predators. They are scavengers. They're weak. They're the basic mob monster that any idiot can kill with. It's not bad being stupid.
Fair. Then I would have him. One suggestion was just bite his hand right off his arm. His hand being bitten in two is confusing me. What does that look? I don't know what that looks like. What do you mean? Like some fingers, not enough fingers. The hand isn't that big, and like my suggestion would be he just bites his hand off his arm. Take or leave it. And my suggestion here, these are making purely suggestive changes. Matthias stumbled backwards as he watched the creature swallow his severed hand whole. Like something like that. That's terrifying. Rather than the creature didn't even seem to notice as it began to lick the hot blood pouring out of his ruined hand. Hot is probably not. I think this description here, we want to get on to the chase. The big thing is pausing to do these fairly long descriptions of the gore. It felt like I was constantly stopping to wait for you to finish describing the thing so I could continue on. And I would just go for less is more, boom, and get to the action of the scene. Ramona turned and ran as fast as her legs could carry her. Help me, Ramona, please. Suggestion here. I think all of this stuff, more of the horrific monsters, I think is what you wanted to say, more than one. More of the slunk out of the dark. Yeah, definitely have that. That's obviously something you can't cut because you want to have, there's more of them. And they began to tear him apart. Like a pack of lions works, raptors would, and hyenas would even better, but however you want to go there, lions works just fine. They shattered his limbs and disemboweled him as they ate him alive, leaving the most important. No, I would just go right for a second. More of the slinked out of the darkness and began to tear him apart like a pack of lions. Oh yeah, let me just think of every National Geographic video. Like, this description was cool, but all of this just felt a bit superfluous. And I would go right, a pack of lions. God, stop, please. Matthias screams, echoed after her as Romana ran as fast as she could. As she ran for her life, she turned and watched the monsters finish what was left of Matthias and grinned. Who owns who, asshole? Like, that's what I was looking for, this moment where, as she's now, for us to believe that, like, for her to run away and have that response all by itself, to me feels like, good, he finished the loop. This story started with her thinking she could trust this guy, caring for him, loving him, him completely betraying that, using her, nearly raping her, and then going getting and and her watching all of this happen. And I can see her almost with mad eyes, like almost crazy eyes. Because what kind of a woman celebrates, like, back to your original question, how many people want to see their victim torn apart? I don't know the answer to that question, but I know in the chapter you wrote, everybody wants to see this guy get ripped apart, because that's the book you're writing. And I would love to see her, my suggestion would be that she's not merely running in fear. She's been living in fear now for this entire stuff. Like, at the end, I feel like she's still, the adrenaline is just charging through her, but I wanted to get some sense of satisfaction on her part. And especially if he was taunting her earlier and saying, "Hey, I'm in charge of this situation, bitch." I want her to say, suggested that she say at the end, "Oh yeah, now who's in charge, dick?" Right? Take or leave it, or some version of that. But if she's running for her life, covered in blood, but also like this is the final scene of Evil Dead, Texas Chainsaw. Every single one of these movies ends with a woman who's running for her life, but also having been driven slightly insane by this whole thing. She'll never be the same. She's fucked up for life, covered in blood. We don't even know if she's going to survive. Does she die, or does she survive as she gets out of there? I like that she
I'm
survives.
leaning towards survive. I asked my brother what he thought, and he just said, "Let her survive." So,
yeah, I'm into that. And I would not be bothered at all if she got interviewed by Julius when he arrives, or something like this. Does she? I can't remember.
Technically speaking, what happens is that they meet up. She meets up with Julius and the other guy. The other guy,
Perfect.
Julius takes her aside and starts asking her some questions regarding what she's seen. And the other guy kind of just wanders off in there to start his own shit and dies like an idiot. While Julius is doing things like making sure, finding out what happened, what did this, and putting her in contact with someone who's going to both wipe her memory and get her the help she needs.
Love it. Yeah, I love the idea, and then you can play with that any direction you want. Like, is she borderline catatonic when they meet her? Is she like sort of rocking and kind of like glazed over and sort of like this with this weird, slight, Joker like smile? Not like anything like that, but sort of like this. Like, I am dying to see what she looks like after this, because this is sort of like, again, you can compare it to the movie Jaws, when or Jaws 2, when they finally find the girl on the boat after her. I think it's Jaws 2. They get to the boat, and her boyfriend and all her friends have all been eaten. She's the only one still left on the boat. And when they get to her, she can't say a word. And when she does finally open her mouth, she just goes, "Shark!" And because she's now finally mustered up the courage to say what she wanted to say an hour ago, but she was in a sort of semi-catatonic state. But I love this. This is great. So this is just summing it up. My suggestions are longer opening, where we see them give us a sense that, oh yeah, there's no danger. It's just a couple in a graveyard, and then we see the terror build as we see who he is, and that he's brought her here specifically so that she can't run. She's kind of hedged in, and there's nobody who's going to come to her rescue. That is terrifying all by itself. That we see him make the moves that makes us mad, makes us want to run to her defense, but we're helpless because we're reading about it. And then here come the monsters and rip him apart. And if he's been stalking her meanwhile until the monsters arrive, I love that. I might just tone down the "come out wherever you are," but you can keep that too. Nothing to push. And then big thing is when he finally gets eviscerated and torn apart at the end, I was looking for some satisfaction on her part, like, yeah, fuck you, because I think that's actually how. Well, this would never happen. It's all fantasy and fiction to begin with. But I think the audience will respond very well to her having a "yeah, fuck you" at the end, right? Even though she's soaked in blood and also absolutely riveted with fear. She is in a she is at a 10 PTSD 10. And I like when people go a
She
little crazy
she's not
when
really
they're in.
got all that covered in. Like, I guess she did rip his lip, but did we decide one way or the other if she's slipping in the gore?
Well, that's awesome. Like if this was a movie, here's what I'm picturing. Before the monsters even appear, she's already got she's starting to look savage. She's got blood pouring down her face here, if nowhere else. So is he. So they both are matched with blood looking right here. Um, I don't have anything to prescribe in terms of where, but I would be, you don't have to, but I'd be amazed if she isn't, not, shouldn't have to be splattered, although that may be too. This guy is like a fountain of blood. That's how I would film it.
So
Matthias,
yeah, she's probably covered in covered in blood. Uh, like, no shirt at this point in the story, basically. So yeah, she
yeah, basically she's a mostly naked woman covered in blood. Oh man, especially when Julius comes. By the way, you get to give Julius a really, if you want a really beautiful save the cat moment, you get to humanize him a bit. If when he gets to the scene, he sees that she's there and they haven't nobody's arrived yet to put a blanket around her. Don't have to do this, but goddamn, I would love it if he did that because it would show that no matter how hard and grizzled he is, he's got a heart. Those are your moments.
especially if he takes off his coat that's worth several $1 million and puts it around her.
Mm-hmm. And like and especially if what's the guy's name, the ice banana split guy, what's his name again, the other
I
guy?
don't know.
I would love it.
I feel like I
I
should
would
give
love
him
it.
the name of Dead by Chapter 4.
Sure. I would love it though when they arrive. Like this guy has never seen anything like this. Like he just complained, hey, shouldn't we be hunting monsters rather than eating ice cream? And Julius knew better. He's like, kid, you don't even know the shit you're about to see. You don't even know. This is why we have ice cream. So later on, when they arrive, I would love to see that guy walk in there and see all the viscera and the dead bodies and the blood and Matthias and 18 pieces and walk in. And Julius takes off his coat and puts it around the girls and look at him and says, see, that's why we have ice cream. This is why we have ice cream. Right. And it's a beautiful little callback because this guy's just fucking PTSD'd out too. He's like, oh, virgin. This guy's a virgin. He's never seen one of these scenes before. And Julie says, right. So next time I say we have ice cream first, we have fucking ice cream. Next.
Definitely. Could you send me some movies with, I can't really want to say this, but some good, I guess for lack of a better word, rape scenes? I can't believe I'm saying that.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah. Sexual. I'll call them sexual assaults. Scenes. Other ones, I
Basically,
think.
any movies you think that will help me in this, because one of my bigger problems is I can't recreate something if I can't visualize it. So
Before you let me, yeah.
steady diet of movies and stuff is always helpful.
Let me just write this down here while I can. I want to. There's a YouTube video I want to show you real quick. Let me see if I can find a chainsaw massacre. The Descent is awesome. The Descent. Oops, I spelled that wrong. The Descent. Evil Dead, the new, either old or new. Jaws. um oof, Sexual assault scene. Let me just give me just 1 minute here. Let's see if we can grab something here real quick. Films, I don't know if it's as simple as saying, looking this up, sexual assault. Oof. A lot of these are like,
Yeah.
things like what's
I
that
don't
one
want to
called?
see, I'm guessing.
Well, here I'm just going to share the screen. A lot of these have to do with gang assaults.
Oh, God damn it.
Hold your, which is, it's interesting, but hold your breath. The ultimate example, the most terrifying example, is probably the movie Milena. It's famously got a scene, Girl in the Woods.
Hello, family.
This movie, I'm trying to remember what this was.
Why is it all these rape scenes always have it with like a gangbang? Like,
because men are cowards. And let's see. I think I'm trying to remember the name. I Spit on Your Grave. Oh, okay, here. A lot of these are like revenge, sexual assault slash revenge scenes. Girl with a Dragon Tattoo has got to be one of the worst, slash best for this.
I think I'll check. What's The Descent about?
The Descent is wicked because it's basically, that's a good one for showing terrorized women running for their lives from monsters and going slightly or not so slightly crazy. Let me just see if I can find. This is The Descent is one of my favorite movies ever. Yeah, she's just completely fucking crazy by the end. Can you? Oh, hang on. So this woman in this scene, you can see it and hear it?
Yeah. Wait, is this the one where they go down into a cave and get trapped, and there are a bunch of like predators down there?
Yeah, it was meant to debunk the myth that women are better than men. It was meant to debunk the myth that if a like the whole idea, this is what the director was exploring. He said, you know, a movie, a bunch of 5 guys get trapped in a situation like this. It's every man for himself. But women, if you put 5 women in the same situation, they would band together and work together to make, to escape. And this movie completely rips that idea apart. She finds out that so she is the main character, and she's lost her. If you've seen it, she lost her husband and daughter at the beginning of the film, which is why her kids took her here, or sorry, her friends took her here.
Doesn't she escape only to find she's still inside?
So I'm just going to cut through all of this. So we think she's escaped. And my favorite bit is when at the end, her daughter, who's dead, she's obviously completely lost her mind at this point. Her daughter brings her the birthday cake. She's just completely lost her mind, right? So, but she's happy right before she gets eaten, because here come the creatures that are moving in. Evil Dead, I think, is a wicked, example just to show somebody it just completely lost it. 2013. Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah. Pretty much. Actually, the very best example. Very best example. That is some shit-tacular resolution here. Let me just see if I can get.
You know what I've noticed all horror movies have in common? No one has a
What's
gun.
That? Yeah, nobody has what they need to actually survive.
And they're all in America, where there are an average household.
Tell me about it. You'd think there would be more. So here's this woman.
This movie's based in Texas, so like 8 guns per household, at least.
And a bunch of chainsaws. So this woman is maybe the best example of a cinematic woman who's lost her mind, running for her life. And they actually did famously terrorize this woman during the making of it. It's very controversial. Um, the director Tobe Hooper specifically actually terrorized her so her performance would be more authentic. Oh shit, no. This whole moment here where she's like, where she's like completely lost her mind, but she's like, yeah, fuck you, Leatherface. Like that whole I kind of get that vibe a little bit from this woman. But you could, to me, you only get to have that ending. The reason this ending works is because we have seen her go through absolute hell. Now you're going to do, you've got one chapter, you've only got part of one chapter, but that's why I love what you've done dramatically. Is if this woman is truly a victim of the man who brought her here, her heart's been broken, she's been physically threatened, like sexually threatened, she's been physically threatened, she's seen things that are unimaginable. So like, spending some time watching these creatures, like when she slips on the body, that's my favorite moment actually in your chapter. When she steps forward backwards and steps in that woman's, and she turns around, she's like, oh fuck, what's that? And then she turns around. If you were to describe what she sees a little longer, like give us a little more of a description of how she has walked into a part of the graveyard that's literally a buffet for monsters. That is, and then she's like, holy shit, what do I do now? And she's hasn't even finished processing what she's seeing, and here comes Dick Cheese jumping on her, ready to have her way. And like, I would stretch that out a little more too, where he's like, I got you, because he hasn't seen what she's seen yet, and she's like, I got you now, and like stretch that out maybe a few more sentences, and then they jump on him and land on him, and she watches as he's dismembered, and then she's watching all of this, and she gets up and leaves. Like, it's so cinematic. That's what I love about your chapter. It's so easy to visual. Same with your first chapter, your prologue. Super easy to visualize. And so I would like, you've laid the bones down. So now what I would love to do is stretch it out, like I say, and make it probably twice as long, and really luxuriate in those 2 or 3 moments that beg to spend a little more time in. And again, that's the opening, the bit with that I'm describing, and then the dismemberment of Matthias and her running away, kind of like this would be my recommendation, where she's like, you can see that she is euphoric and terrified at the same time, and that's a rare combination. You don't usually see PTSD and euphoria, and the reason you see it, the euphoria, is strictly the result of a cathartic relief at, I can't believe I got away from this, I can't believe I'm not dead too. Am I dead? She would think that. I don't doubt for a moment, especially if when Julius comes, she is so fucking PTSD'd that I wouldn't be surprised if she's wondering if she's dreaming, or if she's like How is this? And if you could execute that in your story, that's a real tour de force for a writer, because that shows that you got into the heads of your characters enough to realize that, yes, if a person actually, even with all my humor and everything else that's in the story, if a human being were to actually experience this, these are probably the kind of reactions they would have. That immediately elevates your story to more than just a cool, gory fantasy thing. Now it's a gory fantasy thing with um, real human responses. So it's something to chew on. But we can get there too. You're fucking killing it. We just need to, if you decide to go that direction, then we can kind of build that as we go.
Okay. Sweet.
I think I'm trying to think of any other sexual assault revenge scenes. Revenge, sexual assault. Last thing here, revenge film. Oh, girl in the basement. Yikes.
Yeah, that's probably too much for me.
So you don't have to go with any of these, but notes attached. This does next Monday still work for you to read at his regular time?
Yeah, next Monday should work fine.
Awesome. Okay, I'll have your notes to you here shortly. Take care, brother.
Will do. See you next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.